And now we're going to move on to our group member specific segment. We're going to talk old school with the professor and the game master. Elder, what do you want to take us? What part of your memory lane do you want to drive us down?
Well, I've been thinking a lot about this because, in my first episode, I definitely kind of gave my board game biography, which I think is a really kind of interesting thing to do, being, game brains as much as we are. And I'm actually thinking I'd like to go ahead and write it out at some point. Just write a couple of pages about my kind of history through gaming, because they have played a really important game in my life. So I don't want to kind of repeat too much. So I started thinking about, well, what are the other different kind of aspects of games that I didn't speak about before that I think are still really important. And, I think the first thing that I know I'm pretty sure I didn't mention before is a little game. Well, first I got to say, I had a bunch of board games, when I was younger, but I didn't really play them a lot in my family. We didn't really play board games with my mom and dad, and with friends. I think a lot of my early gaming was Atari.
Oh yeah.
I got an Atari 2600 when I was, when they first came out. I guess I was.
Was that the second system?
I think it was the first one.
That was the first generation. Okay, so it was the 5200 was the second system. Yes.
Right. Yeah. I got the 2600.
How many joysticks did you go through?
I went through about 8 or 9.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. Just I remember taking them apart and seeing a little plastic break, and my cousins finally got one around the corner, but I was like the first kid on my block.
Nice.
That had a TV in my room and that the Atari
in your room.
Yeah, in my room.
Dude.
I had my Atari, and I played the heck. And I used to actually take it when I went to go stay with my grandparents. I would take it up there. My favorite games were bowling was like the first game.
Sure.
Combat. So I played a lot of that.
Dude, Combat still holds up. Combat is an amazing game.
So just as a quick aside, I was at Indiecade, which is this independent video game thing that happens here. And these guys came up with this game. I can't remember the name of it, but very similar to Combat in the Unreal Engine, but with little balls that roll around and you can do different loadouts. And I was like, this looks like Combat kind of. You guys should go back and kind of check that out maybe a little bit. Just even the way the maps were set up.
Oh, big time.
And I was like, wow, like that. There was, remember, it was all those different modes. It's like kind of coming back to me now too.
You would have the tank game where sometimes the tanks, the shots from the tanks would rebound once or twice before they stop.
Yep, little ricochet action.
There was the game with the biplanes where you had machine guns, so they would be firing constantly. You'd just be making all these circles and circles, and then you'd try to circle the other way to catch up to the other guy. Yep. Oh my God, it was so good. The jet fighter one. I mean, they had every game in there. It was amazing.
And what was that, 6-bit or 8-bit or whatever? Whatever it was definitely a special time. And also at Indiecade, I actually saw a little book called The Atari Age that kind of detailed the history of those games. And I, I still get excited when I see that box art.
Yeah.
Because it was so, like, again, compared to the graphics that was on the game, it's like it's kind of amazing thing to kind of think about. But I was so enamored. I was so into these games. I actually hung for some reason a form of a pyramid. I saved all my boxes and I hung them up on my wall, and I would just stare at the art on those boxes.
The art was amazing. They even made like an Atari comic book that was just they would just to sell Atari products. I remember, I remember panels of that comic book. Like I remember Frank Miller's Dark Knight, like iconic,
etched in your brain.
Yeah, totally, dude.
Yeah, but Yar's Revenge. Probably my favorite game, not probably, but definitely, the Activision games are great. Pitfall, but Star Master. You ever play Star Master?
Which one's Star Master?
Star Master was the first and maybe the only game that I can remember where you actually use the console as a part of the UX, right?
You would flick one of the switches?
You would flick one of the switches, and you would go, it would basically take you to a star map, right? And you would see all your kind of star bases, right? And then
I'm having a memory.
Yeah, and then one would start flashing, and it would be that one's under attack. So then you would have to warp to that and then defend that star base against intruders.
I remember this.
So
game.
it had kind of like a map feel to it.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun because it really, again, as far as user experience with those really crude graphics, I really felt like I was defending, my star bases, and it had different levels to make it more difficult. It was a great game. I played that game for hours.
Do you remember the game where it was like an adventure game? It was kind of like it was somewhere in between Zork and Ultima, where you were just this little dot.
Yeah, adventure.
Adventure. Of course.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I will say this: it kind of dovetails to what I was talking about when we were talking about miniature games. Like for me, all I need is the little wooden cube because I used to play Atari, and when I would play adventure, that 1 pixel, that 4 pixel dot that was me, was every bit as real and as heroic as the most gaudy fantasy art, spread of a paladin you've ever seen. It was everything because my mind did everything that it needed to do. Yeah. Right. Yep. And that was that. Then that was Star Crash.
Star Master.
That was Star Master. I remember that game.
Yep. And the cartridges, popping that cartridge in the console.
Such a good feeling.
Yeah, man.
And there were so many worlds. I mean, it had so much going on, and this was in a time when it was basically pre-PC.
Yeah.
Right. And that was it. That's all there was. I mean, there was ColecoVision, which came before it, which was just. They just had it came with a pistol or a rifle. You'd shoot, you'd do duck hunt basically, and you'd play Pong. Those were the only two things they had.
Yeah.
I will tell you something. In Japan, I spent, it must have been $10 on a game at a Japanese arcade, which are insane things they have there. But it was on a, how would I put it? An analog Pong game. It's a table.
Oh, wow.
That you sit down at. And I have a spinner thing, and the spinner thing spins a 4x4 cube thing that's about the size of a hot dog. That is my paddle. And there is a little dot, little square, that when the game starts moving, it moves exactly like it moved in Pong, but it's literally physically moving. Wow. And I'm physically turning a thing to block it. And it is exactly Pong, but with something that is a physical entity before me. I can't begin to tell you how much joy I got out of that experience, and I also cannot begin to tell you why. I don't know why it was so fascinating to me, but it was almost like something from my youth was suddenly materialized in a transporter, and it's like Galaxy Quest, right? Where it's my fantasy is made real somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was really my early game, like what I spent most of my time on. So it wasn't until like high school that I got into like tabletop games, which is a whole conversation. But the other kind of board game was a game that we played a lot of was Crossbows and Catapults. You ever play that game?
Oh, Milton Bradley! Holy cow! Mm-hmm. Wow, that was that. I remember it had a lot of moving parts and stuff like that, right? And it was Siege. It was the Siege.
Yeah, it was Siege. Yeah, you had there was these little discs, and you had a little crossbow with a rubber band and a little catapult, and you were basically trying to, had some different rules that you can kind of decide which rules you wanted to play with. But you were basically trying to get your tokens onto the other persons and to your opponents and break down their kingdom and get to their treasure. I think was like the main goal of the game. But I had this cool map that you can lay out, on the floor. Well, actually, no, that was a different game that had the map. There was a similar game that we played also.
I remember that, and I remember Broadsides and Boarding Parties. Or one of those that was like a sort of ship theme one, but it was not that dissimilar.
Yeah,
dude, those were the expensive games too, right?
Yeah.
Those were the ones those were like, one person in our neighborhood has that. Who is the one who has it?
Yeah,
Elder has it. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, your mom knew where your heart was, right?
Yeah. I definitely had support with my games. Between my parents and it was actually my grandma who used to buy me the Atari cartridges.
Dude,
yeah.
She was your first dealer.
I was pretty spoiled when I was a kid.
That's awesome, though.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah, it's a good way to be spoiled, I think.
I love it. If you don't mind, I'm going to talk memory lane for just a quick second. This is when I first realized that I could actually design games, like where I could actually not just play something, but actually create something. In high school, my friends Jim Fitzgerald, who you've met, who we play games with all the time, and Andrew Ryer, who we played Concordia with last night. Mm-hmm. We all went to Christian Brothers Academy, which was a Catholic all-boys high school in central New Jersey, southern New Jersey, sort of freehold area, Bruce Springsteen territory. We have to wear a tie and jacket every single day, and we were just like, I'm involved in the Scouts. I was involved in the Scouts when I was a kid, and now my son's about to get Eagle Scout and all that sort of stuff, which I'm pretty excited about. Yeah. But I'm a Scoutmaster, and when I talk to the parents, I tell them, like, look, I grew up in this really interesting town called Sayreville, New Jersey, and you can draw a 30-mile circle around Sayreville, and the most amazing thing is nothing fun ever happened within that circle. So Scouts and other things were ways I could get out and actually do something fun. We were battling boredom a lot in New Jersey. Yeah. There was a lot of that going on. And there was this movie that came out in 1980 called Midnight Madness. It's this weird movie set in Los Angeles about a group of, it's like a college competition where there is a game master who's basically putting together an all-night scavenger hunt. Mm-hmm. And the colleges have like the white team and the red team and the yellow team and the blue team. And each one of them have 4 members. I think David Naughton, who he was the star of it, who was the star of American Werewolf in London. Mm-hmm. Michael J. Fox's first role. He was the little kid. Oh, wow. Little kid in that. It was, when you think scavenger hunt, you generally think you get a list of things and you got to go find these impossible things to find. This wasn't that. This was a riddle. And you have to figure out what the riddle is. And the riddle will take you to the next place. And there you'll get your next riddle. And sometimes there's something you have to do there in order to get the next riddle, and so on and so forth. And it just kind of captured our imagination. And, in the mid to late 80s, we were just kind of fascinated by it. And then, God bless him, Jim Fitzgerald just said, I'm going to make a scavenger hunt like there was in this thing. And we were all like, okay, whatever. Put the whole thing together, invited us all over. We had, just got our driver's licenses. We were absolute maniacs. We came, there were like 4 or 5 different cars, and each one of them had a team of like 3 or 4 people in that car. And we would go on the scavenger hunt. And it was all over Monmouth County, New Jersey, which is a very, very large county. We would go from Freehold to the end of Sandy Hook, which was, I can't even tell you how many miles. It was basically from dawn to dusk, 12 hours of driving like maniacs, going crazy, trying to figure out these puzzles. There would be things like, there would be a clue that was at a railway crossing, and the clue is on the top of the arm that comes down across the road for the railway thing. Right. So you're staring at it, and it's 17 feet up in the air, and it's written really small. You're trying to using binoculars. You're trying to. There's no way you can. You have to wait for the next train. So you're looking for the train schedule. When's the next train going to come? We have a lead of maybe 5 minutes on the next group. Are they going to catch up before the train comes, and we can get that next clue? And Sandy Hook has these old military bunkers from World War II or something along those lines. I don't know when. There were clues in that. And over the years, we would do this once or twice a year, every single year, this group, and it just kind of expanded. The winner of the previous year does the next year's one. I think we won the first year, so I got to do Andrew and I got to plan the second year one. And we ended up doing it in all kinds of places. We did it in several different counties of New Jersey. We did it in Manhattan one year. Which was absolutely amazing. The one clue from that one was about King Kong. Mm-hmm. So we're on the top of the Empire State Building, right? Looking around for the clue. We can't find it anywhere. We call in for a hint, and they say there was another King Kong movie. They meant the 1980s King Kong movie.
So you had to go to the Twin Towers.
We had to go to the Twin Towers to get on the top of that. Wow. We even ran one in Los Angeles, which was fascinating. Coming up with a good clue and a good location is absolutely fantastic. It's we had one clue at the Camera Obscura in Santa Monica. If you don't know what a Camera Obscura is, it's this sort of really old technology where you have a super dark room and you have a light that shines in from outside. And what it does is on a dark white wall, it projects the image of what is outside. Sort of early photography technology is essentially what it was. This camera obscura is on a turret, so you can actually turn a wheel and have it line up in a particular way. And so the clue would send you here. First, you had to figure out where this place was. Almost nobody knows this thing exists.
Right.
You get there and you turn it to 210 degrees, and then you look at the image on the camera obscura, and what it's pointing at is where your next clue is.
Yeah.
So you go down there,
That's
right?
very cool.
Oh, it was awesome. We had they had to rent kayaks in Marina del Rey and paddle out into the middle of the channel to a buoy where the next clue was hidden. We had them racing over the canals in Venice, over all the bridges in Venice, looking for the right symbol on the right bridge in order to do that. And it's just one of those things that I can't even begin to tell you. I got pulled over for speeding on one of these scavenger hunts, and right before I had done that, one of the items that we had to get was a live goose. I was the only one who got the live goose, but I had it in my trunk, and as I braked for the police officer to pull me over, the goose in the trunk started going crazy. And I'm looking in the rearview mirror as the police officer is getting out of his car and hearing whack, 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 whack. Oh God, we're in big trouble now because we stole this. We totally stole this goose. We do not. We don't have paper. There's no way.
Yeah.
Whack, 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 whack. The cop's 10 feet away. Whack, 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 whack. Cop's 5 feet away. It shut up the second the cop was beside the car. He didn't hear a thing, and the whole time I'm just, how quickly can I perform this transaction? Do you guys know what yes, we were speeding. Do you have here's your driver's license, here's my driver's license information, there you go. Sorry, sir, super sorry. We're in a rush, we shouldn't have sped, we will not speed again. Thank you, sir. Sure enough, got out of there, and the darn thing didn't make another quack, and we returned it to its place that night and had a great adventure, and we fed it carrots and... No, it wasn't carrots. What was it? Seed, whatever. Bread. Some of my favorite memories are of this thing that we just all decided to do. We just sort of created our own fun and created our own game. And when we were talking about old school as a theme, it's something that kind of came to me, that this is something that we do. We sort of create our own fun. When we design LARPs, we're designing fun for other people, and it's kind of like the scavenger hunt, which is something, it's done once, it's never done again. You spend a month putting it together one time and it's over. And yet some of the most satisfying memories of gaming in my life are these beautiful, amazing, exciting little one-offs that somebody just poured their heart and soul in and all their creativity and came up with something. And I think, oh man, when gaming really is, when it's hitting a tuning fork for me, it's usually hitting a tuning fork for that reason, because I'm seeing a person shine.
Yeah.
And I see that at board games all the time, just in a different way. But I really love seeing a person's personality shine through. Last night, Jesse was in rare form. Like he was just picking on me and you and David, like relentlessly, but in a great way. Yeah, like he was basically like, you guys give me a lot of heck on the podcast, and then he just started dishing out just as good as he had been taking all this time. And I was just like, dude, that's Jesse, man. That's Jesse. He's like this awesome. He's just this awesome guy that is the brunt of jokes, but is always there, ready to just come right back at you and give as good as he gets. And he does it with a smile. He's just got this like just great spirit. I absolutely love that. I think that's about it.